Welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam. So 2 days ago I did my review of Captain Marvel. If you wanted to listen to that, you can check that out on Beware of Spoilers, which is a separate podcast that I do. You can search on Apple Podcasts. I don't know if it's up yet on Google Podcasts, because for some reason Google Podcasts is a little bit slow on the uptake. But it's up now. And it did saying it was up 2 days ago, but it wasn't. But it's up now on Google Podcasts. So you can look it up anywhere you get your podcasts, and you can see my review of Captain Marvel. I loved it. It was a fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, it's only Saturday. The movie came out Friday. I saw it Thursday night from preview night. If you haven't seen it yet, absolutely go see this movie. It is amazing. Go see this movie. I've seen it twice already, actually. I saw it on preview night, and then I took my brother to see it on Friday. It's a really good movie. So that's where we're not going to talk too much about it now, because I don't want to spoil it, considering it's still opening weekend. And as we do with this show, we tend to wait till things come out on DVD to discuss them, and we'll do an episode then, which will be probably I don't know, if it, I'm thinking it'll come out on DVD, August, September, something like that. It's going to come out on DVD, give it a few months. Today we're going to talk about Creed 2 instead of Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. We're going to talk about, we're also talking about Arrow entering its final season. We're going to do that first. So it was announced by Stephen Amell on Twitter, and then various other sources also confirmed it from within the production of Arrow. The first show in a post-Smallville age to prove that a true superhero show could run and work on network television. Arrow is coming to an end after its 8th season, which will be truncated, ending at 10 episodes. We also know that this fall will be Crisis on Infinite Earths. We also know from Elseworlds that Oliver Queen made a deal with the Monitor to save Barry and Kara's life. So I think this all points to the distinct, not possibility, but probability that Oliver Queen does not live through Crisis on Infinite Earths. Which brings me to my next point. Because The Flash hasn't picked up for a full season, and I have seen somewhere that Grant Gustin, who plays The Flash, his his contract runs through season 7. So it probably going to get another full season out of The Flash next year. I don't think it's likely they're going to get another truncated season situation like they did on Arrow. So, if that's the case, do they do the Red Death next year? Which they dropped the Red Death. They name dropped him as a character in when they were in the Flash Museum, saying it's the only person who Cicada has beaten. Cicada has beaten the Red Death and Zoom's death count, body count. Is it likely they're going to do the Red Death? And if Oliver Queen does die in Crisis on Infinite Earths, they can introduce the Red Death as a speedster early on, and then they can just not unmask him until after the mid-season finale, when Oliver would die at the end of Arrow. Personally, I would like to see Crisis on Infinite Earths take the entire first half of the season. That's just my opinion. I think it would be better served for everyone involved, including the viewer, if Crisis on Infinite Earths went on longer than just 3 episodes. If it was the entire first half of the season for all of the shows, that would be I think a unique thing that's never been done before, having that big of an arc across that many shows all happening at the same time, with all the characters kind of mixing and intermingling with each other. It'd be a really interesting way to go. And I think we're going to start seeing the first inklings of that on The Flash in the coming weeks, considering it seems like Cicada is going to be handled by the end of the next episode. Which gives them the entire, back quarter of the season to kind of set up Crisis on Infinite Earths and make Thawne a bigger force going into Crisis. If Crisis on Infinite Earths is happening, then there should be Harry coming back. Harry from Earth 2 should come back. I'm assuming Jesse Quick will be making a return, I think God Friended Me was picked up, so I think she's a prior engagement, but I can see her having a small role in 1 or 2 episodes. Hopefully Wally comes back. It's a shame that they already killed off Firestorm, considering how big of a role Firestorm had in the comic, and there was a Firestorm in this universe, but he is now deceased. But I could see them time travel. Weird. They could bring them back. There are so many characters that I hope return, and I could see the cast of Arrow kind of dispersing and doing other things. Like if the guy who if David Ramsey really wanted to, they could make him an alternate Earth Green Lantern, as they've already alluded to on the show. In Elseworlds, they said when Barry from Earth 90 sees Diggle, he's like, "John, there you are. You got this Earth too. You don't have your ring though." Implying that he's a Green Lantern. And I think that'd be a good thing to do. Maybe send him over to Send him over to Legends, which would be great for his character, because his character's kind of redundant, even with Curtis gone. I don't know where they're really going with what they're doing with Argus's plot line on Arrow this season. So yeah, I think that this will be an interesting way to see where things go from here for Arrow, considering an Arrow is going to be ending up soon. And I'm not going to lie, I've never seen a show go on as long as it did after what is considered to be the worst season hands down, which would have been season 4. It's only another 3.5 seasons after season 4 ended, and that's really impressive. And it really turned itself around, because it never hit as bad as it did at that point. So we'll wrap that up. As we get more information, we'll report on it. I mean, it's obviously going to be digging into something with Speedsters next season, considering Godspeed is coming in episode 17. So 2 weeks from now, we're going to have Godspeed on TV, which will be interesting to see. And there's a possibility that in the comics, I guess read the Flash annual with Bart making his return, and I read that, and it seems like they're bringing Savitar in the comics, not necessarily the same version of Savitar, but the comic version of Savitar could be returning. So it's an interesting thing to see where this goes. And then what was the other thing? Oh, Creed 2. Speaking of good segues, we're going to talk about Creed 2 now. So I was really hyped for this movie, because I saw the first Creed in theaters. That movie was amazing. It was the best Rocky movie in like 40 years. It's easily the best since Rocky 2. So Creed 2 is when they announced that, like, oh, cool. Then they announced that Ryan Coogler wasn't coming back, and it's like, oh, that's a little bit of a bummer, because, he was the one who was behind the direction and all of that, and it felt really personal when he told the story and all of that. It was a really good movie. But the cast would be back and all of that. Then they announced, and this got my hype back, was the person he's fighting in the movie was going to be Ivan Drago's son. And that not only would Sylvester Stallone be back, but also, what's his name? Dolph Lundgren would be back as Ivan Drago. So it reignited my excitement. Then the trailers started coming out, and the trailers started looking all over the place, and I didn't actually see the movie in theaters despite wanting to. Then the movie came out, and on DVD, I picked it up last week, watched it, and I think that the movie is, it's okay. I wouldn't say it's as good as Rocky 2. It's not as good as Creed. It's not as good as Rocky. There are a lot of movies it's not as good as, but let's just say it's a lot of similarities in terms of the plot to Rocky 3. Where it's like now he's cocky because he won. He's the heavyweight champion of the world. He beat Wheeler, who was the guy he fought in the sparring match in the beginning of the first one. He's fighting him for the heavyweight championship. He takes it. And then he gets challenged by Victor Drago, who comes to America in the opening of the movie reminded me a lot of Iron Man 2. Because it kind of opens in Russia. But the thing is, it's like you have an emotional attachment to the characters already, because you know the history between Rocky and Apollo and what's it called? Ivan Drago. So it felt more personal, where it's like the movie didn't have to explain it to you later because we already know this. Then there's also what's it called? I'm blanking right now. I don't know what I was gonna say. That was it. The movie, my biggest problem with the movie is the movie can't really decide if it wants to be a romance about his relationship with Tessa Thompson's character, whose name I can't remember, not Adrian, and if it's going to be a boxing movie about him coming to terms with his legacy and what he means and what all of that is. So I think that's where the movie ultimately falls apart, is that it's trying to be two different things at once, and it kind of not quite succeeds entirely at either. It's like if it stuck to one or it stuck to the other, or if it devoted a little bit less time to the boxing training and a little bit more time to his relationship with his wife, or vice versa, it would have been much different. It would have been a better movie, but the problem is that it kind of tries to have it both ways, and you can't really do that. So I mean, it's a perfectly good movie. It's fine. It's just I would have preferred that they spend less time in either direction, trying to sell it one way or the other, because it doesn't quite do either well when you try and do both. So yeah, we'll wrap up there. If you haven't seen Creed yet, I would definitely recommend you go see it, especially since now it's on DVD. You can pick it up at a Redbox. You can rent it on Amazon for like $3. It's definitely worth the time watching. It's a really good and entertaining movie. There's some really like deep stuff between Ivan and his son Victor, and it's an interesting movie to watch, to see that dynamic and the dynamic that Ivan has with the other people of Russia and how Russia receives him and all of that. It's a really interesting take into it, but not quite as interesting as what was that? The 30 for 30 about the I forgot what it was called. The 30 for 30 about Miracle on Ice. But yeah, definitely go see this movie if you haven't already, and we will wrap up there for today. We'll be back next week. We will probably do Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End next week, or Vice. I don't know. We'll see. But we'll be back next week with a new episode. Have a good rest of your day.